this. This is the model for personal change. Actually, there used to be five boxes instead of the 4, 5 parts. And they eliminated one of them because this model started, there's a name of somebody, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, actually developed the model when she was dealing with people who had gone through a traumatic experience, especially death. Because that's probably the hardest change of all, is to lose somebody that is very important to you. Okay, so this came from the research that she had done and working with her patients. So it was 5, and then it was moved down to 4, because now in general we're talking about change, having to do with change in an organization, etc. Nothing as traumatic as what she dealt with. So we start off with the fact that, as you can see, it goes up and down, right? So it's a flow of some kind. We start off with the top, which is to deny that the change is coming. You say, not true. It's a rumor. It's not going to happen. You say that the company's moving to whatever. No, they would never do that. They're crazy. That's not going to happen. It's just a rumor. So people deny, even sometimes if they have the proof in front of them, they deny. It can't be true. Okay? Some people, apathy. Who cares? It's like, come, it happens, it doesn't happen, who cares? It's a way to defend yourself, by the way, a way to not have anything touch you. Apathy means lack of feeling. So if I'm apathetic, it means I don't care. Maybe the people care, but they pretend at least like they don't care. And then numbness, which is the idea that you feel nothing. Okay, that's how some people, they go through that phase, they survive in that phase by these, so the whole thing is about denying. And if you look at this, sorry I don't have my laser with me, but if you look at this, you'll notice that this part deals with the past and this part deals with the future. So in these 2 boxes, I'm still basically dealing with the past. Okay, so I come down to here, which is resist. So before it says I don't believe it, now I believe it and I'm resisting. They're not going to do this to me. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to accept it. And what happens when you resist, basically, here are some of the things. You can't sleep at night because it's hard work to resist and it causes stress. So sometimes people can't sleep. They are very aggressive usually, so when you say something to them, they have a tendency to react very aggressively. The attitude is, I did all of this and now this is what I get. For 12 years I've been doing this and here's how the company pays me back. It's that idea of everything, basically is down to nothing. Remember, because they're resisting the change. It's not something obviously that they want. Withdrawal from the team. People say, okay, that's the way it is, I'm not playing. Like little kids, when they don't like the game, the rules change, and the kids say, I'm not playing anymore. That's exactly what employees do, except they don't say it to anybody. They say it inside. Okay, that's what they think, okay. So that means my work. How much work do I do? Well, they think that by doing this, all right, I'm going to do X instead of this. I sit in front of my computer, and I look like I'm working, but I'm not really doing very much. So, withdrawal. Now, if they come out of this, deny, first I deny, then I resist, it's a period of time, right? Then I go to explore. So then maybe the person says, maybe it's not so bad. I loved that software program from before. I loved it, it was good, and maybe I should take a look at the new one. Maybe the new one has something. So it's the idea of going outside of the box and starting to explore. That's a positive sign. And what can happen sometimes is that people can explore so much that they sort of over-prepare. They do too much. I learn about the new thing so much that I end up it's just too much for me. Frustration, too many ideas. I lose focus because I'm all over the place, because I'm used to something. Now it's something completely new. The danger of exploration is that the person can get stuck in it and become very unproductive. Not because they want to be unproductive, but because they're not able to focus their efforts on anything. Okay, then we go to commit. They get out of that phase, they go to the commit phase, which is they're back as part of the team, even if the team is new. They are satisfied, they look at they focus on the future, it's looking good, I feel good, I know how to use the program now, and I can even teach other people. That's the ideal. But here's the thing you have to remember. People do not move through the different phases at the same speed. So you can have on one team, somebody who's still here, and some people who might already be there. Mentally, they're already gone. They're already at the level of having tried it at home and prepared and love it. And, do you understand what I'm saying? You have to know where are they. Because you cannot treat people the same. You can't help them move. Your role as an HR person, or as a, whatever it happens, organization development, whatever area you are, your role is to help people move through this curve. And that means that you have to know where they are at any point in time. Where are your people? How many of them are still denying? No? How many of them are still resisting? By the way, you can have what we call passive resistance, right? Which means I don't tell you I'm resisting. I just don't do anything. So you say, we're going to say, okay. So in front of you, it looks like it's fine, but they are passively resisting. I'm not going to use that system. So every time you ask them to use it, the system has a problem. I tried. You should see what it's doing. Do you understand? I try so hard. Really, I love this system, but... So at the end, you have the result is resistance. Does this make sense to you?
What does it mean by numbness?
By?
Numbness. The third word is deny.
On the left-hand side, in the deny.
Numbness, what does it mean?
Numbness is when you lose feeling. That means but here of course you don't mean physical numbness, right? We're talking about mentally numb. It's like nothing bothers. There's no passion. There's no interest in anything. The world could fall apart around you. It wouldn't matter to you. It's very serious, by the way. The problem is when people stay too long in one of these phases. Some people get stuck in a phase and they stay forever. Do you know some people who are stuck in some phases? Think of some of the people that you know at your work.
Even if they're stuck in the commit?
Well, being stuck in commit is really good. Because it means, it means if I'm stuck in commit, it means I'm really committed. And I'm going to keep being committed,
It's just a lifestyle we have to go through this long.
By the way, some people jump the stages. In other words, they can very quickly go through the stage. You can have somebody who denies, and then you explain the thing to the person, and they go right away into exploring, etc. But when people really resist, and they really, really can resist, you can have a whole project that actually falls apart because of people resisting. And you don't even know they're resisting. And in Egypt especially, most of the time people don't tell you they're resisting, right? Because socially, they don't say no. Even though they say more now these days than before. But they'll say, oh yes, sure, okay. And then they don't do it. So they are in that sense of resistance. So can you see the difference now, here? Organizational change. We're talking about the whole organization from the beginning. We start with unfreezing what exists. And that means they already know about the change coming. It means we celebrate what was good about whatever the old part was. Then you bring them in through a number of initiatives into movement. That means things start to change. Transition. We're going to talk about transition in a minute because it's very difficult, the transition, by the way. This is the most difficult part, right here. And the longer they stay in the transition, the worse it becomes. So you want the transition period to be as short as possible. Okay, so we go through this, and then eventually, if everything goes well, you start with freezing. Refreezing means we have all the process written down, everything is good, and we're talking about whatever is going to come next. So, 3 main ideas for organizational change, 4 main ideas for this. Now, I want to mention something to you. Actually, before we start this section, I'm going to show you that little video that I sent about who moved my cheese. Okay? So, it's about little mice and about change management, because at the end of the day, something has happened to their food, the resources that they normally have. Then we'll be able to explain and tie the pieces together. Okay? Well, can you trace what parts of the system that they were in, or the phase? What part is?
Always work is wellness.
All what?
Work is wellness.
All work is wellness?
Is wellness.
Yes. Okay. But I want you to tell me, can you look at where they were at different points? Those 4 boxes. Deny, resist, explore, and commit. Could you see where they were at different times? Yes. What did you see?
Him didn't live the denial phase. He continued to be in the denial phase of the movie.
Okay. So that's Hem, right?
Yes.
Hem stayed in the denial phase all the way to the end. He still was talking about my cheese. Where's my cheese? How come? Yes.
I have a friend who took time, but he transferred from the denial to resistance to explore.
Okay. So Ha actually is the one who went through all of that phase, all the phases, right? He was committed. He ended up being the one who when you see what he was doing at the end, he was marking everything down and making sure that it was done properly. What about the mice?
They didn't take time.
Go ahead and add something.
And actually, he was in transition between denying and resisting. He was denying, and then if we can go out there, no, it's too dangerous.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
don't. We try to make some excuses, so we don't want to move. So he's resisting change. Then he denying, then resisting, denying, then resisting.
So he went back and forth between those two, but never got to the explore stage, right?
Even when he got him cheese and told him there's cheese outside,
Yes.
you can move then.
He doesn't want to be
Denying and resisting.
So do you know people like that?
Yes.
That go back and forth between those 2 stages and never quite get out of it?
It's a comfort zone.
Yeah, it's a comfort zone because they know that's a stage where they know, even if it's bad, but they know the badness, you know? It's like, I know what's going to happen, whereas I don't know what's going to happen outside.
I think at the end of the story, he became the explorer phase. Him or Bo, I think, Bo, became moved to the explorer phase because he began searching for new zones of.
But actually, he moved beyond the explorer. He went through the explorer and then did what? The commit part is when he was mapping all the new stuff and was talking about how good it was and making sure that he learned the lesson of making sure that he could track how much cheese was being used every day, etc. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I was just want to talk about this point that finally he realized the fact of change, and the problem with him was that he's not smelling the cheese or keep eye that change is around him, and this was his mistake.
Yeah.
But when he passed through the denial list and at the end the commitment, he focused on accepting that the changes happen and how early he can do this to get to reach the end station.
So what happened with the mice, though? I want you to tie the mice in.
The mice stopped in exploring stage, and exploring stage is not enough. When you find a new source, you should find a newer sources.
So they started exploring earlier, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Changes.
right.
Yes. And they were
They didn't even
equipped to
check.
explore. They kept their running shoes always on, no matter where they went. And they were checking the cheese. Maybe not in the way that You know, these guys were saying we're human beings, so we're smarter than the mice. Do you know people like that who think they're smarter than other people because they have more or they're on a different level inside of an organization?
What do you want to say about the mice found the cheese first or found?
Yeah.
Recognize that they're
What did they recognize, the mice? How was their approach different? Yeah.
They have to smell the cheese before the oven. And
Yes.
they notice the changes before.
Yeah, they noticed the changes before it actually happened, right? They actually used their noses to track the cheese. They had the equipment, the running shoes, to make sure that they got there early. What happened with the guys? Did they go early?
No.
Did they go fast? No. They were just relaxed. It's always going to be there. Of course, tomorrow it's going to be like today, right? And then all of a sudden they found that tomorrow, today is like very different than yesterday. So it's a great, it's an analogy, a story, whatever you want to call it. This is a book written by Ken Blanchard, and it's used as a training for change management. Actually, they have some, I think LTC does a lot this kind of training. Unfortunately, it's very expensive. It has a lot of simulation type things attached, and any branded program is expensive, right? Because they're actually having to import it the way that it was set up to be. So it's on YouTube. You can just go in and put "Who Moved My Cheese" and you'll be able to find it. It's a great way for you to remember, to actually
I bought the book by
apply.
mistake.
You bought the book by mistake?
I want to buy this book, Who Moved My Cheese.
Yes.
I found another book. I know who moved the cheese. I bought it.
You bought it thinking it was a version of this, and what happened?
I think you were happy.
What was it? I know who moved my cheese.
It's a very small book, and it's talk about if you want to be
A cheese connoisseur?
No, we are a different person. Just go to your work and don't talk with anyone. It's very funny, something like
Really? Oh, it's a funny kind of comedy book?
No, it's something strange. I really just.
So did you feel like you lost your money?
Oh, it was cheese.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Dr. Rita.
Yes. Yes.
At the very beginning of the movie, he said a word that summarized most of the problem. It says that we have cheese here that will last forever.
Yes.
So
You always say that.
in any situation, if you assume that things will still the same forever, you are ruining these things. Even a relationship, a friend, a wife, a girlfriend, boyfriend, if you assume that it is still the same, you are ruining it.
Definitely
Things
will
are
change.
going down or are going up,
Yeah.
increasing or decreasing.
It's never going to remain the same. Actually, we know that from a market point of view. If you say, if I only stay in the same position, if my goal is to remain in the same position in the market, you're going to fail. Because everybody is trying to move ahead. So if you think that by staying in the same position you're going to be okay, it's not going to work. You're going to have to make a lot more effort just to stay competitive.
It's like a bullet life cycle.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So it's not going to be because I have it today, tomorrow it's going to be there. You have some, from a political point of view, you have some governments who thought they would be there forever. You know, they've been there 30 years, 20 years, whatever. Of course it's going to, and all of a sudden, look at Ukraine. Look at what's happening in Ukraine. It's like from one day to the next day. Now they have Russian money. It's a completely, 1 week ago, they spoke, and the official language was Ukrainian and Russian. Now,
Totally Russian.
totally Russian. The banks have had to change everything in terms. Who would have thought a week ago, if anybody had said that, people would have said it's impossible. So we can't do it like that, make the assumption that because it is like that today, it's going to be like that tomorrow. Yes?
It's difficult to convince somebody or your boss about change, especially he said we are okay, we are happy, we are
We're
fine.
okay? Exactly. That's dangerous.
And we don't have a guaranteed results to make me convinced about what change we want in our organization.
Also, the second one keeps motivating himself. When I think things will go
moving
Yes,
and
yes.
imagining his trees
Exactly.
through his way, searching for the.
So that's the idea. That's sort of
mindset.
That
Change
mindset of change is that he has accepted the fact that change is going to happen all the time. So let me manage the change by recording, documenting what I find, and learning. Yeah, he put down what he learned each time. Those are lessons learned. And that's what we need to do, because the next change is going to be different from the change we had before. Yes.
I'd like to add something about the movie.
Yes.
Also because of the people, there's the people that have more complex brains than the mice. They have beliefs. The mice didn't have such beliefs. So some of these beliefs were wrong and they were limiting beliefs.
Yes.
So one of the messages was change your belief, change your behavior.
And
so it alludes to what my colleague
the
mentioned.
attitude thing that we were talking about before is that your behavior is a result of your attitude. So when you change your attitude, you definitely change your behavior. But changing behavior by itself means nothing. Why? You put employees with one manager and they will behave one way. You put a different manager with the same employees and they will behave in a different way. Same employees. How come? Behavior is very easy to change. I change it to adapt to a situation. It does not mean that my attitude or my beliefs have changed. So if you really want them to change their way of thinking, you have to change the attitude that makes that behavior happen. Right?
I think
Kevin. He's not convinced yet, but we're working on it.
He's thinking about something.
Yes.
I have a point of view concerning what he just said. I saw it in a different way. I agree with you, but I saw that the rats, for example, they have a simple mind, okay? They don't have emotion, for example, but the human beings have emotion with the barrier that they can be alive this way. When we discharge these emotions, they can easily be simple thinkers and move through this way.
Right. When we were saying before about those 4 reactions, the mice didn't have those reactions. They just saw no cheese, we want cheese, we're going to look for cheese. Whereas this person, one of them is trying to go back to the old days when the cheese was there, even though it's not there anymore. So the mindset of the person definitely makes a big difference. The other ones are just looking at the facts. The fact is there's no cheese. They need cheese to survive. They will find cheese. That's it. The others are, people are more complicated than mice, obviously. Sometimes we need to learn from mice. Okay, so let's go to the part that has to do with the PowerPoint. Basically, what I have up here is a way to look at any process, not necessarily the change process, any problem. You always plan, you do, you check, you act. Okay, this is a system that you can use for anything, not only change management.
What is the difference between do and act?
Do, check, act. Plan first, then do, implement, check, and take whatever actions you need to take. So the actions are a response to the checking. In other words, I plan, I implement, I check on the implementation, and then I take corrective actions, whatever actions are required. And it's a cycle. Okay, so here we have a simple way to look at the change process. You have where we are today, the current state, where we want to be, the state of tomorrow, the desired state or future state. And then basically, you have the process of change, the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And we look at it definitely from a time point of view. And you have, of course, the transition state, the in-between, the movement neutral zone thing that we were talking about before. Okay? Here's the problem. The longer you stay here, the more problems you're going to have. And the top part, the technical side of the project, which is the project management, I can give somebody a project management course and tell that person, show that person how to monitor the non-people part of that change project. project management is the process of the project. But change management is the people part of the project. So that's the technical part. Project management is the technical side of creating change, implementing change, and change management is the people side of the project or the people side of implementing the change. And you have to have both happening at the same time. You can't do one and then do the other. It has to be right from the beginning, that people understand and you understand what they need. Does that make sense to you? So the idea is that the future state, you need a very clear vision. Very clear vision of where you want to go. Everybody in the company knows exactly what the future is going to look like. They also have to have an idea exactly of where they are now. This is us, all the data. We know where we are. We can see where we want to be. And we have a strategic plan to get there. The strategic plan takes us from here to here. And then we have the two arms of the project, which is the people side of the management part and the project side. Now, most of the time you have good project managers. They hire people, they train them for the project, and they do no training of anybody who's supposed to manage the people side. Why? Because people are just going to go with the project. Is that right? From the movie you just saw, do they just go with the project? Of course not. They're going to go through those stages, and so most of the projects fail because either that the project is never implemented fully to begin with, or it's implemented badly, and people do not put in the effort, or you don't get the results that you want. They hate it. They don't understand it. They don't. I want to go back to AUC for a minute. When they decided to move AUC from Tahrir Square to Tagama, did they need to move? Definitely. Was it an emergency? No. But it was developmental, which means that you have a university in a downtown section of the city. There is no growth possible anywhere. They are living. They are in buildings that are not built for universities. So in other words, they're adapting their program to the building instead of the other way around, which is to design a building to house the program. So they needed to move, but they needed to get people to understand why it was so important to move. And they didn't take the time to do that. It was made at the level of the board of directors. The move was started, and then what happened? Talking about moving the cheese, these people had a cheese that they had liked for a long time in Tahrir Square. It was close to everything. Some of them lived within walking distance of the place. Some of them bought flats so that they could walk. I'm talking about staff. They liked the old buildings. They liked the history of the place. They liked, the library where it was, except all of that. All of a sudden, they moved them. They moved them to where?
To the desert.
Middle of the desert. Right? Whereas over there you could walk outside and go buy something or go to a cafe or whatever. They moved it to the middle of the desert. They have to bus them in. It takes them an hour and a half in the morning, another hour and a half in the evening to get bussed in the middle of the God-forsaken desert there. It's cold during the winter, hot during the summer. And what? Nobody ever asked their opinion. Okay? And to add insult to injury, as they say, to make the matter worse, not only do they have to be on a bus for about 3 hours a day, they have to work 1 hour longer every day without any extra pay. How happy do you think they were when they moved there?
But the revolution came at 2011.
How did the management justify the extra hour? What is the reason?
Because they thought that they were already not working the correct number of hours. They had always been privileged.
So all the changes in one time?
Yes. They figured since we're moving them to a new campus, let's go. I did a lot of training for AUC. You can't imagine how much time was spent during every training program to talk about how badly they were treated.
But actually, almost all the management perspective here in Egypt, they said that we shouldn't get the employee opinions in any of these resolutions or strategies or plans.
And why not?
Because we will never ever satisfy the employee.
Yeah, but
So
yeah.
we shouldn't seek their opinions.
Okay, so it's not about satisfying the employees. Employees are not stupid. They know that there's some things that are not going to be able to be possible. People know that. But at least respect me enough to ask my opinion. When they moved the campus. When they designed the campus, why don't you ask the employees to choose among the designs, give you their input on what the school should look like? What does it cost you to do that? You know what I'm saying? They completely...
Yes,
Go
very
ahead, Sal.
important thing in the designing of the offices and so on. It used to be very close to one another as an instructor,
Yeah.
where we can talk, chats.
Yeah.
When we moved to the new campus, long distance walking between
Yes.
one office to the other and one department to the other. So you don't have time to communicate, you don't have to socialize with other departments. Maybe it was one of the policies, I don't know, but to separate the instructor, to separate people so that they do not communicate.
It's not about... At the end of the day, the employees are not going to make the decisions. The decisions have to be made at a different level. But at least people feel they asked me. They got my opinion. And at least you have the chance, face-to-face communication where people can explain to you why something happens. The bank that I was telling you about before, you know how they communicated with their employees? They communicated by newsletter or by email. That is the most ineffective way to communicate. And during changing times, you should never do that. You need to communicate face-to-face during change. Because people are already worried. They already don't know. So by email, that's ridiculous. You communicate by email when the situation is you just need to send a lot of information out. And nobody cares, you know? So send out the information by email. In the bank thing, they had asked me at one point, by the way, the manager of the bank was a Frenchman, so it's not just about Egyptians who don't do it the right way. He was French. So he said at one point, we had a conversation. He said, I understand what you're saying, but you know, we don't have the resources to do this kind of thing. So you have the resources to buy a bank, to integrate the bank and do all of this. You don't have a resource to prepare your people. It's not about having the resources, it's about not having the will. So he invited me to a meeting. He said, I think you're mistaken, you're not understanding the situation well. So he had a meet. This was his communication meeting with these bank managers, right? The ones that not all of the ones I had trained, because I only did one program and then they stopped it. So what happens? We're in this room. And he's talking to them about all the great things that are happening and this project and the merger and etc. etc. And at one point, one of the guys puts up his hand. He stands up. He said, "Sir, excuse me. With all due respect, I need to ask you a question. I don't understand why this." He was one of the people who had received the change management. He says, "Why is it that we are not being involved in anything in terms of the change? Why is it that you know, we're told when something has already been done, but there's no way for us to give any input?" So the guy says to him, "You're giving input now." So he says, "I'm giving input now because I raised my hand, not because you asked anybody for an opinion on anything." So he says to him, so the French guy who's standing here says to him, "So why? You think you know more than me?" And I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" But all of a sudden, completely changed. Now it's a personal thing between him and the guy said, "Look, I am not trying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to understand because I need to be able to answer when people ask me questions, when my clients come to me, when my employees come to me." And he said, "Communication at this level, this is communication. This is organizational communication." So the man said to him, "Well, if that's organizational communication, I think that you need to take the course with Dr. Rita." And that was not...
That was the end. This was the last course. That's why they stopped the training.
So he said to him, he picks up, he goes to his desk, the French guy, turns around, goes to his desk, and he has a yellow card. I swear. Yellow card. He said, "Do you play football?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you know what a yellow card means?" I was so embarrassed to be there. I thought, I would just like to go through the floor. Because the guy said, "I'm not being disrespectful. I don't understand why you're giving me a yellow card. Why? Don't I have the right to speak?" He said, "You don't have the right to speak to me in this tone." What tone? The man was being very respectful, wasn't using, for me, he was absolutely professional in the way that he was addressing it. So they had this thing, and other people got involved. And then this guy was talking to him, and then he went to his desk, and took out a red card.
Yes,
And I said, okay, yes, but of course the guy's not here anymore. The guy is gone. Yes. But by the way, French are not well known for their management skills. I don't know if you've heard that before. Internationally, they are not considered to be very management proficient. You know what I mean? They have a style that has a tendency to be very authoritarian.
Yes.
Very bureaucratic in the way that they. So, the story doesn't end well. I mean, it would be good if I could say to you, they learned their lesson and whatever. No, they didn't learn their lesson. It ended like that. He said to me at the end, when he sat, he said, please sit. So, do you still have the same recommendations that from before, now that you've seen the communication? So I said to him, actually, no, I don't have any recommendations at this point. And I don't know what I was supposed to say, because I would have had to say to him, obviously you have no idea what change management is about, and I don't think this is going to go very well. But I didn't feel that he wanted to hear anything like that. So I just left it. We left it at that part. It was the end, done anyway, finished. And then I talked to some people from the bank afterwards, after this whole thing, and they said that it was very painful. It was a very painful process. And actually the smaller bank was actually better run and better organized, and the culture was more people-friendly than the large bank that bought them. So they didn't learn anything from the small bank. The message is what?
Guessing the name of banks.
No, you don't have to guess the name of bank. You probably know the name of the banks. Okay. So very quickly, type of change. You have three major types of change. Developmental change, which is proactive change. That means the company decides they're going to improve something. Very different. It's not that something is wrong. It's that we want to be better. So we develop ourselves. Second, adaptive change. That means something is happening that we did not start. Let's say political change, economic change from the outside, and we have to adapt. And then forced change is when, it just changes. CEO of the company changes. The company is bought by another company. A regulation in the market. The government decides on a new law that forces you. So forced change, you have no choice. So what drives change? Here are the drivers. Achieving goals for improvement, to adapt to change in the environment, which you might not have, and to meet new requirements. Let's say that, example, I don't know the example here, but let's say in the United States, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, let's say that they decide on a new standard for food. From now on, all the labeling on the food will include the amount of this. I have no choice but to relabel all of my products. Okay? So that forced change that we're talking about is external change. And the adaptive change is external change. The one that is really internal is really developmental change. And that's the idea of we're good, but we want to be better. We want to expand in the market. Okay? And that's the best change to have. But of course we can't choose the change. It sometimes just happens. We're not going to get into this today, but this is the model for implementing the change. Cotter model, 8 steps. Establish sense of urgency. In other words, why does the change need to happen? Create the guiding coalition. Who's going to be involved in the change? And you should involve people. Collaborate so you have groups. Develop a vision and strategy. Communicate the vision, the change vision. Empower broad-based action. That means involve people. One of the things that we did in a company that I worked for in Latin America is that we were moving our headquarters. So the move had to happen. People were not happy about it because it was sort of like ABC. They had been there a long time and they loved the place. So we moved into another. But we did involve them. We involved them with the choice of the company. We had a focus group from the employees, and they saw the dossiers of the company that were submitting bids to us. And they were involved in the design phase. You know what I'm saying? So at least as a committee, they had a committee of employees who followed along as the process went and who were able to communicate back to their colleagues. So generate short-term wins. So the idea is that celebrate the small things that you do well, don't wait for the end. And consolidate gain and produce what?
Management change.
Management change, yes. That means that each time you change something and it works well, you consolidate it, you make it better. You organize it, you make it solid before you add the next piece. Consolidate the gains that you make, and then institutionalize new approaches in the culture. And that's the freezing, the refreezing kind of thing. Okay, eventually you'll have a, what do you call it? A session on this, on the Cotter. It's the most well-known system. Yeah. So the mindset about change, it's about how you see the change. It's not about the change, it's about how you feel about change, right? How you understand it. And some people believe that all change is bad. Some people believe that. They think of change like, I'm good right now, I don't want anything. Even if it's for the better, I don't want it. And some people believe, there are people who believe all change is good. You know that? There are some people who run around, anything new, they love. They're running around like the mice, like into everything, exploring everything. So you have those two extremes. And sometimes they're working in the same company. Okay. What kind of person are you? Do you make things happen? Do you watch things happen? Or do you wonder what happened? In the mice and the men over there, the little guys, what kind of people did we have?
The mice make
The mice make things happen. Do you agree with that? They went looking for the cheese. The cheese was gone, they went looking. People who watch things happen. Yeah. People who wonder what happened. Oh, yes?
And also him make things happen.
Yes, at the end he made things happen. It's true. You have 3 types of people, and you need to decide which one are you. Number 1, which one are you now? And which one do you want to be? It's not because you are one now that you have to remain like this, right? So, what do you think? Where are you? Do we have any people who wonder what happened? Sometimes. Then you look and I say, huh? What happened? Right? You want to try not to do that? How do you do that? How do you make yourself not be there like that?
Always
what should you do?
Anticipating the change going to happen.
Yes, expect that change is a constant. The only thing that you know for sure it's going, so you start to look for, even if it looks like normal, you start to really look carefully. You will see little changes that maybe you would not see before. Are you cold? Some people are cold, huh? Can we, you want somebody to turn off one of them? Thank you. How many people are basically watching things happen? Okay. Now, it's not bad to watch things happen sometimes. But if you're watching things happen most of the time,
a little bit of standing to see what's around and to plan.
Especially when we are not a decision maker.
yes. But even then, you need to really be watching carefully. If you're going to watch, it's watching with the idea of understanding, right?
Yes.
Not just watching. Okay? People who make things happen. At the end of the day, that's what we have to be. No one, this is my belief, no one in Egypt can fix the situation that we're in. No one. Unless God comes down and fixes it.
The current situation.
No one person is going to be able to fix the situation. And that means that it takes people who are committed to making things happen. I'm not telling you which side of the political thing, I'm just saying that we cannot continue, we can't just watch things happen. You have to, within your area, whatever you're doing, you have to make things happen.
How we can do it through BC or through HR?
Well, I think through HR, if you are an HR professional, you have to understand what can be changed and what cannot be changed. Yes? So I'm not going to try to change something that cannot be changed. That's a waste of my time. That's why you need to watch carefully. then it means I look at the areas where that can be changed. And then I start to make those things happen. What I can control. What is within my area to control. Because there are some things you can't control. But you can always influence people around you. You can always do what you do in a better way.
Is there an example?
I think that by choosing what mindset you want to have, let me give you an example. Let's say that I choose to be positive. I choose to be positive. Maybe I'm not, but it's a choice. And that means that everything that I do, I'm going to go and do and look at that thing and say, what can I do in this situation to make it positive? Now, that doesn't sound like a big thing, but it's a huge thing. Because it means that I have to look at every situation and evaluate where is the positive. What can I add to this that's positive? And that's about changing mindset, right? Remember when you said that if you change the way you think, you will change your behavior. So instead of thinking of something as a problem, I look at it as an opportunity for me to problem solve. An opportunity for me to understand how to solve this problem in a different way. It's the way we see things that makes a big difference. If we see the problem as, oh my God, another problem, right away what happens is that emotionally, you don't have the energy to solve the problem. True? If we look at it like that, some people, the problem is there. They say, okay, so now I'm going to look at how to fix this. But look at what happened to Hawk. What was he looking at? How to fix it? No. He was looking at basically staying inside the problem. Right? And we have a lot of people who do that. Instead of like, how many times have you been to a meeting? Somebody has a problem. And people spend time blaming, finding who's to blame for the problem, instead of using the time to solve the problem. Then by the end of the meeting, there's no time left to solve the problem. But you spend an hour and a half, it's you, and you go back and forth as opposed to saying, okay, focus on solving the problem. So yes, you can definitely make, and you can do it with your kids. You can make sure that, those of you who have kids, that you model for them what you want them to be like. Do you want them to be a victim? Do you want them to give up before they even start, or are you teaching them? Are you teaching them how to solve problems, or are you teaching them to come to you with the problem? In Egypt, most of the time, we teach the kids to come to us for problems. And kids are capable of solving their own problems, by the way, if you guide them, if you make them believe that they can solve problems. And the other thing is you have to make sure that you give the message that there's not one solution to a problem. There are many solutions to problems. There's no one solution to the problem in Egypt. You're going to have a lot of people who have to come together and find a way, even if they disagree with each other, to concentrate on the future, which is for a better Egypt, for something to go better. It doesn't matter about who's at fault and not at fault. Okay. So I think this is a very, very key idea about who you want to be. And the idea that sometimes when something is not broken, people think if it's not broken, don't fix it. No, I think you need to say, if it's not broken, maybe we can do it better, maybe we can do it faster, maybe we can do it cheaper. Right? It's not because it's not broken that you don't examine it. So, is change like this or like this?
The second one.
The one at the top, what happens during change? In that, comfort is, I want something smooth. Don't give me problems. Managers who don't come to me with your problems. They want the thing to go smooth. When there's a problem, what happens? They hang in there, they do whatever, and they say, please God, just let me survive until it goes away and we go back to smooth. It's not going to be like that. What you need to do is learn this. And that is that I will be prepared for anything that happens. If it's smooth, fine, I rest until the next big thing happens, because it will happen. So whitewater rafting is the idea that you get the equipment and the skills to do to any kind of weather. It does any kind of water. But you have people who say, if I can just survive for the next 2 months, it will go back to the way it was before. It's not going to. So again, this is a mindset situation. So I want to mention something to you here, which is a concept called, and maybe some of you already know the concept, called critical mass. The idea is, when will we finish?
Yes,
At
it's
3 o'clock.
it's about 3 o'clock.
Yeah. What time is it now?
It's
10
10
minutes.
It's 10 to 3? Okay, well, we're going to have to speed it up. All right, so critical mass is just the idea that in order for innovation or change to happen, we have to get a certain number of people who believe and who are willing. It's like, you know when you ride a bicycle, and you pedal and you pedal and you pedal, you get momentum, and then finally you take your feet off and you ride for a while. That's what we mean by critical mass. The bicycle goes by itself. Why? Because you have actually built up a momentum. That's what you need to do in change.
Like the revolution.
Yeah. So in other words, it builds, and then it continues by itself for a while because the energy is already in there. That's what we need to build inside of an organization. Okay. What does this tell us about organizational change?
Employees are more important in pushing the change.
Go ahead.
Employees are more important in pushing the change.
Employees are more important in pushing the change. Okay, do you think this company needs to change?
Yes, the wheels.
The wheels, what's wrong with the
They
wheels?
are using the wrong elements for change.
Okay, so the wheels are square, which means that it takes much more effort, much slower. Do they have the right elements?
No.
Yes, they do. Look. Look at the top. They have round wheels and spare wheels.
But they're not using it.
But they're not using them. Now, do you think that it's easy for this man to communicate with the people here? How does he communicate with them?
Control.
There's the whole wagon is between him and the people who are pushing. So this guy is considered to be what? The leader?
No, manager.
Well, normally he would be the leader, right?
Here, but here it's not.
Yeah, but here he is a leader. He's by himself. Do you think that this is a good type of leadership?
No.
And do you think that this guy has a clear vision in terms of where he's going? Why not? Because he's looking down. Why is he looking down?
He doesn't have a vision.
Because he is so busy pulling that he can't even put his head up to see where he's going. Right? One leader. But if you had other people beside him in the front, then it wouldn't be as... Thank you. Does this, do you understand the thing here? These people in the back, do you think they're motivated? Do you think they can see where they're going? No. And communication, very difficult. In order for change to happen here, who needs to call for the change?
The leader.
The leader. Can the managers call for change? Managers, their role is to make whatever it actual better, faster, cheaper, better quality. Control, but they cannot lead change. The leading has to come from high up, the person who has the vision. Now, of course, if you're the manager, maybe an HR manager in your department, you might be able to lead change inside your department because you have the authority maybe to do it. But if you don't have that authority, it has to come from up, okay? So this is another kind of change, which is transformational change, which is developmental, and sometimes people don't understand. Like this thing is saying, you'll never get me up on one of those butterfly things, but eventually he will become a butterfly whether he wants to or not. But caterpillars become butterflies, except if I'm in one state, I don't understand what the future has. And we do know that people change when? People change when they know they have new information. They know something that they did not know before. They change when they have new skills. I know how to do something that I did not know how to do before. And they change when they want to change. The attitude changes, and they change. If any one of those parts is missing, you don't have change. So change is a constant. The tools and principles, these are the kind of tools and principles for the other sessions that we talked about. Understanding change, we're going to look at flow charts, how you actually map actual change. And then Lewin's change of management model, which is the freezing, unfreezing, that we need to go into some detail working with that. And the change gauge survey, that means to see how ready the organization is for change. Sometimes there's so much change, people say no more. We're fed up. So it might not be the right time for you to start a new project when people are up to here with already what they're doing. So that's a survey. Planning, there's a tool called impact analysis where you look at what would be the impact of the change on the different levels or different groups. And force field analysis, which is where will the resistance come from? And how high will the resistance, how strong will it be, and what can I do to minimize the resistance? Then we go to implementing change, so that's Collar's 8-step model we talked about today. We're looking at TNA, about how do you implement change if you don't know what the skill levels are of the people you have. And we do that very often. We don't even know what their skill levels are, we just assume.
Excuse me, what
Yes.
TNA stands for?
Training needs assessment. So the needs of your workforce, we said people side of change, right? The people are the ones who make the change happen. Process, people. For you to know how to help those people adapt to the change, you need to know what their abilities are. You need to know what their skills are. You even need to know what their attitudes. And that's going to help you plan better. And then the communicating change is that the stakeholder analysis, which groups will be impacted by the change. And mission and vision statements. Everybody needs to really understand what are we doing right now and why are we going to this new vision. I mean really understand. I don't mean just send the mission statement, the vision statement out in an email to people and say, okay, this is our new vision statement for the next 5 years. So I'm talking about actually communicating with people. So you want to get people involved as an HR person to actually sell the idea. When it fails, usually the main ideas for failure is people issues. That's the largest failure comes from people. The second is poor planning. The planning itself was not good. Managers' lack of training and commitment. The managers have got to manage the change. If they are not trained to do that properly or they don't believe in it, you're going to have a problem. And ability to manage challenges that arise. 70% of change efforts fail. So what allows for successful changes? Change is a process, not an event. Process. It means you have to there's no shortcut. You have to start from the beginning, and you have to go through the process. Change for change's sake is pointless. For us to change just to change, not a good idea. If you're going to change, you need to change for something better. Huh? So it means that the vision has got to have something involved with improvement. Resistance is normal, and that's the way we need to look at it. Don't take resistance personally. It's not about the person. It is about the feeling of resisting change. So in other words, it's about the behavior, it's not about the person with the behavior. Communication is the key to success. Tell them why, ask them how, get them involved in the process, plan thoroughly, make no assumptions. What do we mean by make no assumptions?
Estimate.
when I assume, a professor a long time ago told us this, when I assume, I make an ass a donkey out of you and me. Because assume means for me to take action based on something that I have not checked. I think it's correct, so I assume it's correct, so therefore and it might be incorrect. So now, even if my process is very good, my data to begin with might be completely inaccurate. So you don't assume anything, you check everything. And then, be realistic. Be realistic in terms of everything. Don't think it's going to be perfect, it's going to be easy, it's going to be, I'm going to have 100%. No, it's about being practical and realistic for all of it. And that's change management approved. I thought that was so cute with the little boy.
Thank you so much.